Anyway, okay, so there's
Scream
that.
4. I am pretty here for Scream 4.
Me too.
Again, the Scream 4 I remember when that title came out and some people were like, "Well, this is stupid." And I'm like, "No, it's not." Because if the idea is that this is a reboot, but it's not a reboot, it's a Scream 4, and if the premise of this is that if Scream 2 is making fun of sequels, Scream 3 is making fun of trilogies, if we're rebooting it and you want to keep the name Scream because the killer's rebooting it, here's how you have the word Scream but still have it be Scream 4. I think it's inventive. I think it works, but it only works for 4 because it's being the reboot.
Right.
I don't want a 5 Cream.
The thing about Scream 4, I remember this was the only one I saw in the theater first. Ooh. Everything else I saw on DVD after the fact. I don't really know why, because I liked the movies, but I literally had to text my sister and go like, "Did we see 2?" Because there was a lot going on with our family at that time, and I'm like, I don't think we would have gone to see a horror movie at that time, and especially there's a lot going on. So and she's like, "No, I don't think we saw that." She saw 3 in the theater, I didn't, and then so I go see this one in the theater, and I'm like, "Oh, finally, I'm going to see a Scream movie in the theater." I got to tell you, it opens, and the first time, I'm like, "Oh, okay, this is pretty cool," because we're mentioning like catfishing and punked and Facebook, and I'm just kind of like, "Oh my god, it's a Scream for our times," even though I know it's Scream 4, but I mean, it's doing what Scream needs to do. I'm so glad we waited this long, because there's so much that we can use now that wasn't around back in the 90s and the early 2000s. So yay, here for this. And then Stab 6 ends, or the clip from, and we're in what we think is Scream 4, and we see Anna Paquin and Kristen Bell, and I'm like, what? Oh my god, this is so cool. Oh my god, okay, what's gonna happen in this movie? Because this is surely the movie. And I love the turn it takes. I love the fact that they're still having an open discussion about like sequels and like all this shit. And then it turns into Stab 7, and we're in the third, and I'm like, okay, I could watch this forever.
Right. Like when Scream 4 starts
movie,
proper.
just keep doing this. Yes.
When it starts proper, I'm like, are we in fucking Stab 8 now?
Exactly.
And I like being in that headspace for a bit.
Me too. And I really could have entertained maybe 8 or 9 of those.
Yeah.
But I was actually kind of bummed out when the third one turned out to be the movie. Because also, by that point, these girls, I liked the 2 girls who opened. One of them was Lucy Hale.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one has done a lot of other stuff too. She was good. Yeah. Then we see, fucking Kristen Bell and Anna Paquin, and I was like, okay, awesome, I'm here for this. And then when we lost them, I was like, no, because we went to 2 other blonde girls who I didn't know, and I don't know if this is a casting thing, if this is the way they were directed, but they seemed to be kind of the blandest out of the bunch. Like, this was the crew I did not want to follow, or that I was the least excited to follow. I was waiting for them to get killed so we could move on to 2 people more interesting. Because even the way they talked with their banter, I was like, people don't talk like that. Oh my god, take me, get killed, or Stab 9, Stab 8, whatever it is, Stab 8, let's go to Stab 9 now. And it didn't happen. So I was like, oh, even down to the kill of the I guess the main girl who we follow, she gets dragged back and flipped over, and the knife is above her, and I just thought, Drew fought back until she couldn't fight anymore. Jada was so disoriented and shocked, like she didn't know she was a victim until she was literally penetrated with a knife. So everything like there checks out. So I'm like, okay, so we have, and I don't really count Scream 3 with the kills because it wasn't the best kills.
This is still a better kill than Cotton's kill in Scream 3, though.
Yeah, but the thing that bothered me was I watched this girl who I was already kind of like disenchanted with, I found kind of bland, laying there, and she just kind of laid there and let him stab her. And I was like, she didn't even like grab for his hand or that. And there was
He
nothing in the
closes the
performance.
garage door on her guts, so she's. I mean,
And it
and
goes right back up. It like has a sensor in it that like
no, but
I.
the force with
It
which
didn't. It didn't work.
the force with which they depict it hitting her, I'm like, ow. So I buy like her being like, fucking ow. I can't just get up and run away.
No, but not even get up and run away. But like your arms work. Like fight back. Do something to stop it. And yes, I'm
What is
going to make a
surprising?
point. But go ahead. Go ahead.
No,
Yes.
make your point then.
The point is, this set me up for a long period of, okay, well, this isn't the way I would have done it. I'm still on board for this. I'm still getting Gail. She's Gail. Good. Still getting Dewey. Dewey's the sheriff. Awesome. I'm still getting Sydney, and it's nice to see her again kind of possessing this this need to kind of shine light on her experience, to kind of let people know they're not alone. I'm like, right, it doesn't feel like she's trying to take the spotlight, even though Gail seems to kind of like feel like it's being taken away from her. I'm like, okay, I'm still on board for this. And then as the movie progressed, the kills were to people who I did not know and who I wasn't really getting to care about. And it's not like I always cared about the people who were killed in the previous movies. Even in the first one, I don't really care about the principal and he gets killed.
Yeah, but it's the Fonz, so there's an automatic.
Yeah, right.
And there is a little
Henry Winkler. He's earned his name recognition. Henry Winkler, the Fonz.
It's a very quick shot when she's at her locker the first time they get to high school, and the camera pushes in. Right when it pushes in, there is a bust of Henry Winkler.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, I didn't even notice that.
It's very nice. Anyway,
the first thing that really gets me to hook back into the movie, aside from the core group, anytime they're on screen, I'm just kind of like, okay, I'm watching my family. Because I see Jill, and I'm just kind of, and every time Sydney looks at her, she remembers herself, and I'm just kind of like, well, I mean, yeah, she's got dark hair like you, and she's kind of at the center of her friends and everything. And she's not really kind of like about all of this, but at the same time, she's not, I was just kind of like, okay, I see the parallel, whatever, but I'm not really drawn to you. Like, I still am like Team Sydney. And then there's the other friend whose name I don't even remember, the first one to get killed out of that little trio. And, and I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever. But then there's Hayden Panettiere?
Panettiere.
Hayden Panettiere as Kirby, also who, one of the only names I remember, and even the impression I had of her that I remember, I was just kind of like, yeah, Kirby. And Kirby feels like the franchise. Kirby belongs in these movies.
It's funny you phrase it like that, because there's rumors.
I know.
Because she tweeted a few months ago about like her haircut.
Yeah.
I'm saying if they want to bring her back, I'm so down.
And she hashtagged Scream 5. And Wes actually, I think, recognized this while he was doing Square Forum. And she was supposed to die. And he was just like, let's just leave her writhing.
Right.
Because this is
she
good.
gets stabbed in the gut twice. It's pretty rough. But,
Dewey got stabbed in the back. And then okay, this is another thing I didn't get to bring up with 2, though. Dewey, one thing doesn't also add up for me with 2. If Gail does indeed wait as long as we think she does in that booth, Dewey's bleeding out. Like Dewey, I don't know how Dewey recovers after bleeding out for an hour, 2 hours, however long she stays in there.
Cotton does show up with blood all over him, and he says, I tried to help Dewey. So I like to imagine that Cotton actually, while he was trying to help Dewey, kind of did help Dewey.
Yeah, it's just, wow. Okay. Because also she didn't see him help, so he didn't like get to Dewey like real quick. Anyway, okay, we talked about 2. So 4. This is how, through the body of the movie, I was just kind of like, I keep waiting. I feel like I keep waiting for this movie to happen, and I'm not completely giving up. I'm not checked out, but I'm waiting. I'm waiting, and then I see, my core group, and then I see Hayden, and I'm just like, okay, good, something come on, Kirby. And because also another thing I love about Kirby, Kirby seems to be a little bit of everybody in the initial core group who wasn't a killer. Like she has semblances to Sydney that really get echoed for me when they're both in that like kind of downstairs room, and the Culkin kid, I forget his character's name. Is he Charlie? I think he's Charlie.
I think so.
Okay, when he's there and he's just like knocking, like let me in and everything, and she's hesitating, and Sydney sees it and like laser focus on it. She just says something to the effect of like, if you can't trust him, don't let him in.
Yeah.
And you just see her in the background speaking over Kirby's shoulder, and you see Kirby making the horrible decision. And I'm so with Kirby at that point. And I've been with her up until this point, but at that point I'm just kind of like, oh my God, she's more final girl than Jill could ever be, because I'm so with her. Like, I mean, final girl in a Scream movie. And then the fact that like because the movie references, she's very Randy. And she's also because of the fact that like it looks like she may have had a kill, but that she's going to survive. Very Dewey. And
I'm waiting for you to do the Gale connection, because I have to.
Yeah, I think did I write something? Hold on, I did, but let me find it. Fuck.
Want me to tell you mine while you look?
Yeah, go for it while you do it, please.
When she is on the couch alone with Charlie, and she's like, "Now would be a good time to make a move." She's like, because when I think you're kind of cute when I'm alone and scared and drunk, and I'm like, you're Gale using Dewey, like. I got echoes of that when I watched that scene. It was like, this is not a totally genuine romantic interaction. This is something that you're doing to amuse yourself, and you're a little drunk.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because you know what? I don't have Gale in my list. The other one I have is Tatum, and it was for a similar reason, because not because of that, but more because like I was like, I'm watching a teenage girl who likes sex and who has sex, and who is also she's got kind of like a barbed wit. Like she doesn't have the Sydney components of like the final girl, even though she's very, very final girl when it calls for it. But she's also very wisecracking and Tatum-y. That was the last person. Yeah,
I see that.
So
but remember remember in Scream 1 when Gale's like, I forget what Dewey says to her when they're together in the woods and stuff, but she's like, oh yeah, I think it's just because you kind of like me.
Yeah,
I get that when she's talking to Charlie on the couch.
That's nice. I'm glad you said that, because I didn't have. That was the one I didn't have, and you gave it to me.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so I hook into her and everything, but then like kills are happening. Like, even though I know Mary McDonnell playing Aunt Kate, Sydney's aunt and everything. So, and because I don't want to see Sydney lose any more family members, for that reason, I'm on board with the kill. But at the same time, like I didn't really get to know her, and she seemed.
Didn't get to know.
I couldn't tell how she felt about Sydney, like or her sister. She seems to kind of be able to go either way, like sympathetic or just like, well, that mess.
It's like, a case for me of just like, it's an actress that I love, so like I'm automatically just like, well, now I'm on board. It doesn't matter what she's doing. I'm like, what the fuck is she doing in a Scream movie? I was just so excited to see her.
Yeah, but I also thought like
President Roslin. It was great.
You hired her, so I thought like maybe she's gonna do something. But also this franchise oftentimes is taking like these incredibly capable actors we've seen in other stuff and putting them in like these secondary or backgroundy kind of roles. So I can't complain about that. But at the same time, like, and I thought the kill landed for me with the friend, not because I cared about the first friend who died, but because who I thought were both of her two friends, when I still thought Jill was a Sydney, the reboot Sydney. They have to watch, and especially watching Kirby during that, like watch her friend die during that, like, oh my God, like that hurts. Watch it, having to be across the street. Like, I mean, I got echoes of Nightmare on Elm Street there with Glenn and Nancy, but having to watch your friend, having to actually like watch it and see your friend be brutalized, and what do you do? What do you do? Like, if you run, you may lose sight. So you're screaming for help, and they're still kids. Like so things.
And neither of them can use their cell phone.
Right.
But also, they're supposed to be at that point. They're
panicking though. Yeah.
Yeah.
there's that. The Alison Brie. I didn't know who Alison Brie was at the time.
I had a feeling because yeah. So how did
So I
that?
mean, like,
For those
yeah.
who don't know, Eddie recently watched Community.
No, but I mean, I knew Alison Brie, like, from Glow and from other
Okay,
things
but
subsequently.
okay,
But at the
okay,
time of Scream-Forum,
yeah,
I had no idea who Alison Brie was, so I didn't know, like, oh, look who's here.
yeah.
I was just kind of like, oh, here's a new character. Okay. Oh, she's mean. She's mean-spirited. She told Sydney to her face, something like, you are an eternal, or you're a victim for life. And in my little moviegoer head, I'm like,
No.
Sydney's a fighter. She said so in the second movie, and I believe her.
Well, and
She's done nothing but prove it.
I think they even say, my first thought was, well, have you read the fucking book? And then I think they even say, like, have you read my book?
Yeah, she does, and she says, like, no.
It's one of the things I like about Sydney in this movie, kind of building off Scream 3, thank you, Kevin Williamson, was that if in the third one is her learning to step out of her house, step out of the shadows and stuff, and not be so goddamn alone. The book is literally called Out of the Shadows, and like the text she's reading is about like, I am no longer a victim. I am rewriting who I am to come out.
Mm-hmm.
So to then have like 10, 20 minutes later have her say like, you're a victim forever. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
You just you're not there. And again, it kind of fits for like, I'm here to sell a book. I'm here to make the money. I'm here to do this. Here's the job offer, not the job offer, but like, here's a new 3-book deal and an interview here. Like, let's go. She is essentially the new Gale.
Yeah, but at the same time, she never falls out of that. Like, I don't wish her murder on her. Like, I'm not sitting there going like, good, but I'm also not like terribly like, again, it's another kill where I'm not terribly enwrapped in it. And she didn't even really get to do the scream thing like on a phone or something like right beforehand. So and also like when she gets in the car, but then she gets out to like see where he is, I'm just kind of like, oh my god, you're so stupid.
Well, she gets a little bit of the phone call because like, I'm answering for Sydney, what's the message? It's like, well, you are the message. So we get a little, and I always thought that was a cool line, like, you are the message. And I always like, yeah, you're gonna fucking fall off the building. But yeah, I'll never forget, everyone in the theater was so upset when she decides to get out of the car.
Yes. That's when I'm just like, you movie, what are you doing? And I'm like, that's what and then even when she falls and she is the message, and I see it's basically, it felt like the reason it happened was basically so Dewey will finally believe Gale and stop trying to like keep her away from it, knowing like, no, this is who we are and this is what we do.
This is what we do.
I'm on board with Gale because Gale's ready to be Gale again. She's chomping at the bit to be Gale again because she's been living in Woodsboro and she is bored out of her mind.
And I thought that was a really interesting approach to have her. It's fine for, when she's like trying to write a nonfiction book and it's not going well. But the idea of her being a complete civilian, but then her husband being the officer, and like in 3 they invite her to work with the police. And I like that this is another case of like, the police, like this is a precedent that has been set before, like police can bring on other experts. Like, so I never eye rolled with the circumstances of how we get our core group involved again. This felt believable and it felt organic, especially for her lifestyle in Woodsboro. The bringing of this together, like those pieces really fit, and it really fit for her character. And once again, I believe that it's one thing in Scream 2 and Scream 1 for the fire and the drive and the purpose that pushes people aside. But now it isn't, even if it is fulfilling something selfish within her for something to do, there is no malice. There is no, there are no blinders to just her purpose. But I do appreciate everything she brings to an older version of Gale and what
badass Gale. Yeah. Like Gale tasted life. Gale knows
the only thing,
what it is,
the minorest little thing is when she asks Dewey to bring her on board, and he's like, no. And she goes, well, then I'm going rogue. I'm like, no one tells the person they're going rogue to that they're going rogue. What the whatever. But
and plus, like, I think Sarah Palin had that book out when she said it, so I heard that, and I was just kind of like, oh, don't rogue Palin.
She's a real maverick.
I was like, don't put Sarah Palin's titles in the mouth of Gale, please. But no. So I remember I was writing the wave, but I was kind of like of two minds about it. I was like, I keep waiting for this movie to happen. Like it opened so super strong, and then it's like I'm waiting to get it back. Where like I'm getting some things here and there,
I
and
remember
the more I see it, the actual more I get from the middle. This last time I was very, very grateful for a lot of little things here and there.
there were
But I remember,
several critics who all
yes.
mentioned what a great opening scene and then the rest of the movie. I
Well,
wouldn't go
no,
that far, but
yeah.
I do understand.
Well, because you were the first person, this is interesting to be having this pod with you, because you were the first person to bring, I don't remember if you got this from somebody else or if you were just speculating with other people, because you brought it to my attention. You touched on the 4 in the title and the idea about, reboots and everything. And I think we were wondering together, and
Yeah,
I love this. I love watching it with this lens. I wish everyone could watch it with this lens. So anybody watching this, thank you. And you're welcome.
I think you're
Because
going to mention my number one note about this movie. Go ahead.
do you want to do
No,
it?
no, I
Go
want to
for
hear
it.
if you're going to mention it or not. But
Oh, okay.
if it is,
The fact that, because especially at the time with the release, so many of us were pumped for Scream 4 and here at Scriforum and everything like that. And it's making this note about reboots. And one of the things that wouldn't it be glorious if it was intentional is that at the, shall we say, less amped up moments in the core of the movie, like in the body of it, wouldn't it be lovely if they were making a commentary about reboots, about what happens when you reboot a franchise and you drain everything that was, well, I mean, and not everything, but I mean, drain the magic out. You don't give people exactly what it's want. It's even shot like in with different lenses. It doesn't look like the first movies. It's got this weird, everything is in shadow, even in the day scenes are just as dark as the night scenes. And so it doesn't feel uniform. It feels, even though we say we're in Woodsboro and all of this, and we're even being introduced to these new characters who are going to look at this fresh group of characters who are going to give us slivers of the original, but it's never going to live up to the original. And what we're seeing cinematically, what we're putting you through the experiences, this is what it's like sitting through a reboot. And I thought, you brought that up, and I remember thinking, like, if that's the point, if that was intentional, this is one of the most brilliant movies I have ever seen and will ever see. And I hope it's true. And the next time I watched the movie, I think I rented it. I watched it with that lens, and I liked it so much more. I've seen the movie maybe 5 times. And this 5th time, especially, I was really, because I was looking for them too. I wasn't just watching it to watch it. I was watching it to do this pod. So seeing Kirby and seeing the elements of how she kind of embodies all the characters, she is the movie. She's the magic. That's why all of these expendable characters, or we think expendable characters, some of them, and these red herrings even, like, will they pay off? I'm not really scared. That's just creepy. I don't know what to make of it. It's almost disorienting until we get to the 3rd act. And I don't just mean the climax. I mean the 3rd act, like Gail's back hiding cameras.
yes,
They make a discovery that the killer is making his own movie. We don't know.
yeah.
But his own movie now. Dewey and Gail are, a team again. We get 2 cops we get Anthony Anderson and Adam Brody being adorable in a car together. And when, not so much Adam Brody, but when Anthony Anderson gets his kill, I'm like going, oh, like I haven't with the kills prior. Because it's a horrible thing to imagine a knife going through your skull and
head.
bleeding into your eyes, and you're trying to fight. And I'm like, he's trying to fight. When Gail gets attacked in the barn, she, even though she gets stabbed, she kicks him. When Sydney gets attacked in the house, he cuts Jill's arm, but then he goes for Sydney and she fights back. She hits him. She falls down the stairs. Doesn't matter that she fell down a flight of fucking stairs and she's not a kid anymore. She still finds a way to either sock him or kick him or something. And I'm just kind of like, these are the things that I'm hungry for, and I'm getting enough of them to keep me interested. So good for you, Wes, and everybody. But I'm also getting the things I missed at earlier moments. You're paying things off without me even knowing you're paying them off. And then by the time we get to the barn and we get to Gail, being, the only thing I will say about Scream 5, I really hope my core group gets to interact with each other more. That's what I've craved from the sequels for a while now, and I really want them. I want my group. I want an Avengers circle shot of them like fighting an army of ghost faces or something, something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly that, but you know what I'm asking for. But I'm ready to go right into the finale, but I want you to say some things if you have anything to say before I go into the conclusion.
I'm glad you brought up. You said almost everything. That's my main point.
Okay.
Sorry. And I've seen this. That's all right. But I've seen this with a few movies, and this is the best example, though, of my impression then. At least the way I worded it was that I found that so many of the early 2000 to mid 2000 reboots are dull, and there are parts of this reboot that are not so fresh and feel a little dull. And I, for the life of me, can't tell if that is intentional or not. Because if it's not intentional, it's just a symptom of this being a reboot. If it's intentional, it's a genius choice.
Yeah.
And one of those is enhanced by the cinematography, which you mentioned. Same cinematographer did Scream 2 and 3. And the fact that this looks noticeably different makes me think that it is intentional. And that's my only evidence. Because also a lot of reboots were garish looking. There were so many overtly like yellowy, grimy hues, or in the nighttime scene would have like grimy, greeny, bluey, like everything. And then this movie, there's a lot of like warmer yellow nighttime palettes that a lot of these reboots have. All the blacks are overly saturated. There's so much shadow in this. And I'm like, this has got to be intentional. This looks like, while still somewhat feeling like Scream, but still playing with the reboot thing.
The amber hue Woodsboro.
Yeah. So I've leaned a little bit towards it being intentional, but no matter what, I've always, whenever I talk about Scream 4 to people, especially those who don't like it, I'm like, but it's making a commentary on reboots. Reboots are dull, and it's kind of dull, and I think that's why it works.
It's that whole. I think just go back to the holy trinity of slashers getting cited in the first 5 minutes of the first movie. All had been rebooted by this point.
Yes.
And so much so that one of the things I love, it was in the trailer and I just live for it in the body of the movie too. It's one of those things that works
Kirby?
in both the trailer and the movie. Kirby, when she doesn't even listen for the end of the question, it's just like all the reboots and just rattles off these titles. And you're just like, holy shit. Okay, number one, she knows her shit.
What's fucked up is that she still doesn't get through all of them. I remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh, you forgot? I'm like,
But my God, like just the fact that she can go through that amount of them, and the fact that also we aren't calling them reboots. I mean, we aren't calling them remakes anymore. Back in the day, they used to be called remakes, and that was the one word we used, and it was just kind of a part of life. Like every generation's going to have its Frankenstein or its Dracula or whatever. And that's why reboots, as in practice, like the idea of reboots never really bothered me. But the specificity of like what reboots started to mean around this time, 10 years removed from the original trilogy, what it meant to reboot a franchise, and that's why it also feels like a commentary, and why I think it works so well. And because I mean, that was another thing that 2 and 3 did both do, I thought, really well in terms of look, in terms of style, is that they matched the first movie pretty well. It's not like 100%, but it's pretty I mean, they look like a trilogy. They look like a
absolutely do.
trilogy. And the fourth one looks like this removed thing. And but see, the thing is, okay, so then by the time we leave there and Gail's out of commission and she tells Dewey, just like, you go get the fucker or whatever the fuck. Yeah, get this motherfucker. And I'm just like, oh, I want my Gail back. I don't want her to just be like the one in the hospital bed, just gonna like, at the end or whatever. And we got more than that. She got to do a little bit more than that. But the fact that I'm so ready for this, and then we're back in a house with teenagers talking about horror movies. We got the creepy boyfriend. We got the thing. We got all the framework that we need. And I'm back on. There's something happens, and all of it, maybe because Kirby gets to be more central to the story, and because everything that Jill does is just basically kind of like putting things in motion here and there that we don't know about the first time we watch. The movie started happening for me again, and it did not stop
Oh yeah,
for the
third
rest
act
of the movie.
The first 10 minutes and then the third act are fantastic. I mean, first of all, I quite like this movie. Even the middle bit that I said I've accused it of being dull, but like, that's only by comparison to like 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's still enough pop and fizz, even within the dialogues. It's just, there's something about it that's just not as fresh.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm glad you brought up, I'm going to jump around a little bit before we get to the finale.
Sure.
I'm glad you brought up Mary McDonnell and Anthony Anderson's separately, their kills, because Mary McDonnell does a thing. It's the same thing that happens with Jada Pinkett. It's just this face she makes when her head's against the door and her eyes are open. And then we just go, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, again, I felt you get stabbed in that moment,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She doesn't unfortunately get much to do, but when it came to like, pretending to get killed, she really, again, 2 scenes or whatever, but she broke my heart for just her face. The Anthony Anderson scene is one of the only ones that I find is like disturbing.
Yeah.
Like genuinely disturbing. And this is disturbing. First of all, this, and then he's dead, right? But the fact that he keeps going. I've always had a thing about when people's brains get messed with.
Yeah.
And whenever they show like a surgery, open surgery, and they're doing it for medical purposes, or when the killer is doing it and they're messing with their vocal things, or so any of that. So the fact that his brain is still functioning for several seconds, but it's not firing correctly. Also, I think he has blood in his eyes.
He does.
But that desperation, he does this one pathetic swing. That one pathetic swing, not only does it bother me, but I love that he's fighting. But here's what gets me, is that Ghostface is just sort of standing and watching.
Oh.
Behind, like he can't see, and he's still just kind of, it's
terrible.
Mean. Yeah, I love the dialogue. It's a little wonky. I love the dialogue in the car earlier about how like,
I like it, yeah.
I love the dialogue.
Cops in horror movies, yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
And they found 2 great guys to do it, too.
Like, it's really solid dialogue. The weird little thing, he mentions that you pretty much have to be Bruce Willis. It's a weird beat. Like, I get it, but I remember like it didn't land in the theater when he's like, fuck Bruce Willis. Like, I think it types. I think it's a better idea than the way it happened. But great beat. Another little scene when those 2 guys earlier in the movie, when they're first supposed to be on watch, and then I'm glad they included it. I wish it had a little more weight, but when the police arrive, one of the first scenes is like the 2 of them are talking to Dewey, and Dewey's like, what the hell? And he's like, no, well, I saw him run. So like they explain why the cops weren't around, because they even acknowledge that the cops aren't there. And he's like, well, yeah, I went and chased him, and I tried to get him around the other way, and then he must have lost us. So I'm glad they explained why the cops weren't there. 2, I'm glad that you included Dewey going, what the hell? This is literally what you were positioned here for. That's the sort of thing that sometimes you would skip over. My only bummer is that like I feel like they're going to the principal's office at the end of the scene instead of like, oh, oops, someone died. Again, I think it should have been little more weight. But
Okay.
a little thing that I freaking love. This is again the perfect example of Sydney no longer being the victim and owning her role that she has created for herself. And this is growth to me. Is when their friend is being killed next door, and Sydney finds out about what's going on. She runs outside and makes the choice to go in.
Yeah.
And I thought about in Scream 2 when she's being attacked at the sorority house, and she's going to stay outside while her boyfriend runs in for her. And I'm like, oh yeah, the boyfriend's just going to charge in. And I like that now, all these years later, she's the one that's going to charge in.
Yeah.
She's going to Batman into the, Bruce Wayne to the building. And I'm like, this is what I want out of a Sydney. And I like that we got there in a very believable way.
Yeah.
Especially when she goes into there. I mean, I hate that girl's been killed. First of all, I was fascinated that they stabbed her and all her guts are everywhere and the blood is everywhere.
Yeah.
But I don't know how that happened. Or at least in
It's a reboot.
In the amount of time they gave us.
It's a reboot.
Yeah, it's a reboot. New rules, guts get everywhere. I get mildly irked just because every time I see a bloody scene, I just think, police are coming, don't touch anything. And the first thing she does is start touching things and picks up the phone and talks to the killer. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't touch anything. But that's just my brain.
Me too.
It gets me though when Jill comes in and she's like, just don't go in there, don't look. And I'm like, oh,
yes,
everything she's giving is great. But what the other thing, and this saddens me so much, is that they were having that. We already know. They even blatantly lay it out in Scream 3, like when you go, people die. But like, yeah, after 3 of those events, it's not a leap for some teenage girl to be like, hey, so your aunt Angel of Death is here, or whatever. Or her cousin Angel of Death is here. The fact that girl's dead and Jill's like, she called you the Angel of Death. Like you're processing, even though you're kind of behind it, you are kind of trying to take the wind out of Sydney's sails. And I do see the wind get taken out when she's like, my friend's dead. And I'm essentially saying, you're here, you brought this. We're trying to talk about how like I'm not the victim and I'm not the anchor for this, and here I am being the anchor for this, and I totally buy it.
Me too.
So that's good. I completely agree with you about Kirby. She is the brightest spot in this movie. I do like the fact that as a reboot, not within the movie of them trying to make the killer's trying to make the reboot, but as the movie being a movie, that we do have a boyfriend who looks like he's the killer. We do have like 2 Randys, 3 if you count Kirby, even in a neon green shirt at one point. I was surprised not like how little impact, because the first movie came out and when Billy drops his phone, we're like, oh shit, he's got a cell phone. Like that meant something, because not everyone had a goddamn cell phone on them. But by the time you get to the 4, like the fact that everyone's got a phone on them now, it didn't. I mean, the only real new thing that was like a new element now was, instead of like, oh, the killer was using a burner phone, we can't trace it, or a cloned phone. Now it's, when they get a phone call, it's from like her boyfriend. But like, that's a fun new element. But is it? And, hey, where's my phone's missing? Is your phone missing? Like that was a fun new element. I like the fact that Ghostface has an app too. Yeah, I believe that more than I believe, oh, he's got a machine that's got my mom's voice on it.
Yeah, of course.
But I love the culture that 7 of these movies has built, so that when Kirby's on the phone, she's like, he's doing Ghostface. Like,
yeah.
I'm personally just happy that Shaun of the Dead is in this movie. I can only imagine what it must be like for Edgar Wright to get like the call, to have the clearance, to have that be featured in the movie, because Halloween was featured in the first one. And a little thing that it's a little thing that I adore, but I'm also a Kevin Smith fanboy. But in Scream 1, in the video store, whenever, if there's a Sony movie, it's Sony posters, in a movie. If it's a Warner Brothers movie, there's a Warner Brothers poster in the person's bedroom. So in Scream 1, the video store is nothing but Miramax and Dimensions posters, and
Yes.
there's a Clerks poster in the video store, and then at Stu's house, when Gail hides the camera, she hides it next to a fucking VHS box of Clerks.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, subtle. It's corporate synergy, whatever.
Yeah.
But I like that when they go to the cinema club in Scream 4, there's a poster for Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Oh, I didn't see that.
It goes by real quick, but there is a
Okay.
Zack and Miri porno in there. Make a
The
porno.
poster, the only poster I noticed that I was really happy because it was just it's a little iconic image is on the back of Jill's door, American Werewolf in London, and it's the red, wolf with like the two stripes in the head at the top. That's the only reason I rang it because it closes and then it cut like right away. So I remember I was just kind of like, is that American Werewolf? And I rewound it and I paused and I was like, that's American Werewolf in London. Oh, and it's on the back of Jill's door. Way to plant the seed. Jill likes horror movies. She should be a suspect too, but it tells me real fast. So.
That's.
But also, I mean, but just you bringing up like the culture of stab movies and the fact that they're using it. I really liked the line that they gave Dewey, where he says, "One generation's tragedy is another one's joke." And I was just kind of like, that's fucking true.
That is so true.
All you have to do is be 10 years removed from something happening. And the sense of scope about it, unless you actually go to like the culture that people created to realistically depict it. Like, I mean, there's tons of stuff about like, World War II and like Nazism and everything, but there are also like, a whole bevy of youths living in this country who have no sense of that scope, who aren't watching like, the Nazis are bad movies. And, like, so we have like people recruiting in like chat rooms and shit like that. And I just thought like, oh my God, this movie is not only emblematic of its time, but it was also kind of prescient as far as like, this isn't a fad. This is like the world now. And it still holds up in terms of like the influence and in terms of like her wanting to be this weird star for nothing,
Well, I do find it wholly believable that even more so now that city and the teens from Woodsboro would think it'd be cool to host a Stabathon.
Yeah.
And much like how in Scream 2, when Stab 1 is playing, and the way people are reacting to it and cheering with the masks and all that, I love that enough time has passed that now they're quoting along. That was like, to me, you could have filmed that movie and just had them watching and laughing and reacting.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're quoting was a nice touch.
Yeah. I also like the fact that Kirby's a bit of an outsider because she doesn't want to go initially to the marathon because she feels like she's going to be surrounded by a bunch of nerds. And I'm like, but you are a nerd. You're a real nerd. You're like, you're isolated. Like, you don't want to be around a bunch of people from your small little town who are all going to be like screaming because maybe you really like this movie. Maybe you don't want to watch people laughing at it. I just thought.
Yeah. And especially when you get to her collection at home and she has like Suspiria in it and, she knows who Gunnar Hansen is.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah.
I totally get Charlie's interest in her, even though once we find out that like he and Jill are kind of a thing, there's no denying the attraction to that. And it's always fascinating. Like I've experienced, like, her character isn't fictional, even though they cast like a pretty actress to know about horror movies, but like it is a thing in life when you, the boy, especially you, the nerd boy, find out that like, oh, there's the pretty girl who also is more than just what you think if you're stereotyping that this is all that certain people can be.
Yeah.
I had
agreed.
I had a Kirby. You might have too, but I had a friend who was like a bombshell, but then like she knew her Star Wars shit. I'm like, wait, what?
I had a beyond Kirby. I had like someone I could watch horror movies and then who was also like broadening my art house. Like, I mean, I was just kind of like, holy shit. And just, I mean, there's I understand. I understand of what you totally
get. One little thing about, it always stuck with me. And again, there's something about, and this time I totally believe it's not a question of the ignorance of a writer or something. When Kirby comes out to untie Charlie and he stabs her, and he goes, all this time, and you notice me now? And what kills me is he goes, stupid bitch.
Oh,
like,
he's such an incel. I just thought, fucking incels.
Well,
Like, this is too plausible. It's pissing me off.
well, yeah, but there's this added layer of I've been planning this murder thing with Jill.
Yeah.
So like you have an end date that I've already planned, and I wasn't planning on you going for me at the 0 hour. So like that's also like you fucking now like you like I don't agree with him, but I don't like that he calls her stupid bitch, but I totally know why his fucking brain is like
oh yeah. No, he's by that point, ironically enough, like when he's revealed to be one of the killers, which should be a major cliche at this point, you know, in the franchise. We're on number 4. He's actually like from his interaction with Kirby discussing horror movies on to his last moments on screen, he's the most interesting he's been the whole movie, and the most I mean, it's not like he does a bad performance before then, but with what he's given, like I'm like, oh my god, this is all the behavior of a teenage boy. Like, I mean, I'm this is why I'm leaning in right now, in addition to the fact that like also Kirby's kill, we're talking about like having effect. Hers is the most visceral for me because number one, I care about her, but also because number two, it feels very personal. It feels very personal between the two of them. Like that's another reason, like him calling her a bitch like that, like really bothers me, because I'm just like, oh, now like you're getting insulted on top of injury. You know, like,
and you're not just like a teen. This isn't Scream 1. This isn't just teenagers. Like, we speak the same language. We're both growing up in the stab culture like this. Yeah.
It makes me clench. But then we move to sorry.
So the thing that I like, and they mention this, is that the rules of the reboots and how you have to go past, you have to outdo the ending of the original. And I could, or even just not the ending, but that called to mind so many things. Like anytime they have to add a new element, like Nightmare on Elm Street reboot, like, oh, now you can have waking nightmares. Like, what? Or not necessarily like a bad thing, but like The Hills Have Eyes, like they go to the whole nuclear town.
Yeah.
Like, so I found it interesting. 2 things. One, within the movie, they think, like Dewey and Gail think that the Stabathon party is the party from Scream 1. And that the added thing is the showdown at the house. And I think they even the kids mentioned that. Like, this is the reboot, the added thing. Like, everyone thought it was the party, but we're going to keep it going.
Right.
What I like is that one step removed for us, both of those are the party, because in my mind, there's always Act 1 and Act 2 of the Scream party. Act 1 is we're having a big party and drinking. Then a bunch of people leave. Nobody here but us chickens. And then the second party is the mellow party, where they watch a movie. Sitting on a couch watching Halloween. So the fact that this one is the first half of the party, and then we have that whole thing goes kablooey. So now we have a little get together at this house. And what do? We sit on a couch and watch a movie. I'm like, this is still Scream. The reboot additional bit for this movie is the hospital showdown.
Yeah.
So I love that this movie, I don't know how you feel about Jill as a villain, but I love that after her reveal and after she kills Charlie, and that she has a whole plot, for the first, like, every Scream movie has climaxed with the villain reveal and then the death. And this one is the villain reveal, and then she kills Sydney, and we stay with her for a while as she, in theory, succeeded at her plan. Because we don't know if Sydney's coming back. She doesn't know that Sydney's coming back. This felt fresh, and this felt new, and I loved watching her Edward Norton Fight Club herself.
I love that you brought that up, because that's the only other movie I can think of where something like that happens. I was trying to think, is there a horror equivalent No.
Certainly not in this franchise. And I love
But
that
also,
she's
she's fully conscious of the fact she's doing it too.
right. And there's no
Yeah.
doubt in my mind that she's probably seen Fight Club as she's throwing herself into the glass table.
Right.
And I love that she knows she can't stab herself, so she runs the knife into a door or to the wall. I mean, so I love that we technically get the extended ending. I love that we stay with her for a bit. And then I love that we get, but the other little thing that I like was, I mean, it sounds like you're not super hot on Jill because Kirby just kind of delivers more of what you kind of wanted. But I bought that Jill was our Sydney. Like, I was with this movie giving me her, like Sydney relating to her. And they have like that little dialogue in the kitchen. And she's actually saying the opposite of what her intentions are. Like, I don't know how you could grow up in the spotlight with all that. That must be terrible. And you're like, when you watch that movie again, I'm like, you're a fucking liar. But I think I did not see it coming. It was the first time in the Scream movie where the mask lifted up and one of the fucking good guys is under there. And the movie's like, ha ha, she's not. To me, that still is, to me, that rocks when I watch this. Whether they painted her as the best Sydney, I don't know. But I didn't see it coming. It's the only time where I'm like, the heroine is the bad guy. That's freaking rad. And in fact, now when they're being chased in that house and Sydney and her are together and Sydney's like, get her to bed. And she's like, no, get the fuck out of the bed. I'm going to go outside and lure the thing. When the killer walks by, you can like watch it again. She ain't that stressed.
No, she's waiting. She's literally counting down the numbers. See, this is the thing. Okay, so this is how I feel about Jill. Because I remember when I was watching it, I fell hook, line, and sinker the first time. I saw her the way Sydney saw her, and it made me worry about her. So when we finally got the reveal, that hadn't even occurred to me.
Yeah, same here.
So I lost my shit. First of all, the betrayal, because now she's like this trash person. And not only is she, and totally believably too, like people are trash. So like, no, and particularly like, like people seeking out this social media influencer bullshit. And I mean, I think there are also like, the people who I tend to gravitate to are the ones who, like just like want a platform to share like their interests and like, let's talk to some people I might not have met otherwise or something like that. Like that exists too. So this is not like, putting down all, YouTubers and influencers. I mean, you're one and you're my oldest friend. So no, but I think she exists. If she didn't then, and it felt plausible then, it certainly feels plausible now. And the fact that I love how much I hate watching her get the best of Sydney for a while. And then I love the fact that Sydney's basically down for the count. And then the Fight Club sequence that we get, I was in such disbelief. It was like I got right back to that level of excitement that I got at the opening. My jaw was dropped and I was probably yipping around, laughing, wondering, what the fuck am I watching? And and then the fact that we follow her and then that we're watching her play out her role and then we get to be with her. There's an element of the bad seed to it. And here, this is what Sydney was afraid of becoming, the bad seed, and the fact that, like, we get to watch her sitting there and like, oh, I don't know, it's just so sad that, like, all of this had to happen this way. And then she finds out one of your victims survived. She's like, she survived? Well, I better take care of this, tie up some loose ends.
Right. And even though there is no way at that point she's getting away with it.
Of course. But
I justify, like,
doesn't care.
Right.
She's like, you know what? I'm going to be famous for something.
Right.
Now I'll just be the famous killer. This isn't the way it was supposed to go. I wanted to give you a little dignity. But now...
Right, because she's literally on her bed, like, choking her. And I'm like, you're not concerned with getting away with it at this point, are you?
And I think Sydney, either Sydney or Gail, or either one of them say, like, something like, you're not going to get away with this. Or something. She's like, oh... well, do you think I care? It's like something like that. I mean, it's very, very oddly coherent of the boundaries she's crossing and like the doors she's closing for herself, and just doesn't give a shit because the destructive element has surpassed the I mean, she's also watched criminals get off and live quite comfortably afterwards. You know, like, I mean, even in the 90s, this was true. This was like kind of like the launch for it in the 90s. So the fact that like she's seen 2 decades of it happening, okay, cool, good for her. This is the thing, is that I really don't root for her, but I'm so interested. I'm so entertained by her. And because it's a Scream movie, I don't really think she's going to win. But I'm just so, again, just so into what I'm watching.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this is the movie I wanted, and I'm getting it. I leave the movie. The irony, this is a new thing with the movie, is like before we had like them kind of like talking about like the wave of kills over Woodsboro and everything, but the fact that like she's the center piece of you know, the focus. She got everything she wanted, and it's all happening posthumously. I'm eating it up. I'm just sitting there going like, yeah,
And
I
I don't know
love
about you.
this.
I'm glad you like it because I like it a lot too. But
Yeah,
I'm down with her as far as a performance for majority of the movie.
yeah.
But I am here for when she from the reveal onward. And one of the things I really appreciate about her, um, no offense to any of the other actors who were playing teenagers in Scream, but
Mm-hmm.
clearly not teenagers. Um, I love that I love when people don't, when they try to adult up she she has the cadence of a teenage girl, and she doesn't try
Yeah.
to mask it. There's something very youthful, because she is youthful in that movie. But and even though she's saying, she's got the gun and she's like, "Get up, get
Yeah.
up, bitch, get up." And I'm like, "You still sound like a kid." I
Little
love that you
punk.
sound like a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's some you see a lot, it's more a male thing to kind of posture, but I really respect that her voice when she yells, she doesn't
Mm-hmm.
try to bring it down.
She's
There's
not
no
playing
producer's note saying
crazy.
like her voice is a little high and can we bring it, like, no. I really respect it.
Yeah, no, the fact that she's not playing, she didn't fall down the Mickey hole. She's not playing a crazy
Oh
person and
yeah.
like doing all this kind of like weird brooding thing. She's just a narcissist,
And a
like in
psychopath.
and a psychopath, but like a psychopath, like en route to just feed her narcissism. It feels like she's a
Yes.
narcissist first,
And I
which is
will,
also first with this franchise.
here's one of my praises for this, because you've said a lot about her and I agree with you, but one of the little things I like is it's very easy, especially for Kevin Williamson, who, even though he's not an old man, is not the age of these kids anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who personally thinks TikTok is fucking stupid, so I'm also someone it's very easy for someone of an older age to go, these kids and their social media this is stupid. And the people who are trying to chase fame everyone bitches about, rightfully so, people becoming famous for doing nothing. We had our Paris Hilton, we had our Kardashians, we've had the smaller ones like the I can't remember her fucking name, but the Cash Me Outside girl, like
Oh
all
yeah.
these, and people, influencers or models on social media that are just Instagram models and people who have millions of followers, and I'm like, who? I don't know. They're on TikTok and they dance and they're famous. I go, huh? And
Oh, yeah.
what's their talent, or what have they contributed to? Nothing. They're just famous. So
Yeah.
I totally buy her thing, but I also respect that it doesn't feel like it's coming from a place of like an old man.
No.
It's not Abe Simpson, an old man yells at cloud.
No.
But it very well could have been. But they did enough that I totally believe that her as a real fleshed out person wants this, and not just because of the generation she's from, although that is part of it,
Yes.
but of who her cousin is.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, I'm glad that she has such a contemporary motive,
Hmm.
but that it doesn't feel old man yelling at young kids.
Mm-mm. Or just like gimmicky, like, well, now here's the Scream part.
Right,
It's
because now it's Scream in 2013 and people have social media now. Like, it doesn't feel
yeah,
cheap.
not at all. And it made me really, really sad that like it didn't get like a greater reception. Because even after the first time, with the middle and not having that conversation with you yet about Scriptorum and like what that means in terms of reboots and everything, like that just made me like it more. But I had a good time, and I remember I left feeling, because there were some people you could tell from the way they leave the theater, you can tell whether people are like happy or not, and people didn't seem to be happy. I was like, it was one of those cases where I was like looking at my sister like, I really liked it. She's like, me too. I'm like, okay, I hope we get a fifth one. And I actually I can't give any inside details because I actually don't remember. Sorry, but I dated a screenwriter for a time, a little after the movie was released, and he told me that he was, and we were already dating, so he wasn't trying to impress me or anything. But he told me that he was on board, like with like what was supposed to become Scream 5, because Scream 4 was supposed to be, this big massive hit, and I don't think it was a flop, but it wasn't
It
the
didn't set the
massive
world on
hit
fire.
that would warrant Scream 5,
Well,
like right on the heels of it.
Scream 1 was a slow burn. It was
Yeah.
a sleeper hit, but truly,
Yes.
it made a lot of money over time.
Hmm.
Um, Scream 2 was also a big hit.
Hmm.
Scream 3 opened big and then was
Yeah.
critically and socially not as successful. So, and then I don't know if it was just Scream 3 didn't leave a good taste in people's mouth, or enough time had passed that like is there a huge fan base for this, or was it just so exciting at the time, but not enough people were fond enough, I think, to return to theaters for it.
Hmm.
Um, but I one thing that was interesting at the time, and I'm kind of it's the only good thing that I think came of this, was Miramax and Dimensions were under Disney. Miramax is run by Harvey Weinstein, and
Mm.
Dimension was run by Bob. Both of them were both of those guys' companies, but like Harvey oversaw specifically Miramax. Bob specifically saw over Dimension,
Right.
and they left Disney, or they were fired from Disney, but like they didn't get to keep Miramax, so they had to start the Weinstein Company. But they did, as part of the deal, get to keep Dimension.
Oh.
So Dimension movies kept getting made,
Hmm.
supervised by Bob Weinstein. But and everything that had been a Dimension movie was still owned by them. And there was that
Hmm.
period that this was a part of where they're like, "Hey, we need money. I know. Let's reboot everything that was successful. We have a catalog of things. What was a hit? The Spy Kids movies. We're gonna do a Spy Kids 4. What else? Well, Bad Santa over the last several years has become very. We're gonna do a Bad Santa 2. So I remember like when
Hmm.
Scream 4 was announced, I was kind of like, these are all just reboots. Like, how much of this is a cash grab? And of that era, Scream
Hmm.
4 is totally the best one. Although I enjoyed Spy Kids 4, but whatever.
Okay.
Joel McHale's in it, so yeah.
Yay.
Interesting. Joel McHale from Community was in Spy Kids 4, and then right,
Alison Brie in
Alison Brie is
Community.
in
It's
Scream 4. Okay.
Forum.
Yeah.
We got any
Um,
Community people in the other one you mentioned?
I don't recall anyone being in Bad Santa 2, but
Okay.
that was I don't even think I finished it. That hurt.
Oh, I'm
Um,
sorry.
one little thing to go back way to the very beginning of our Scream 4 talk is you're talking about the opening scene,
Yeah.
and the once we get to the real girls, Britt Robertson is the shorter one, the less
The one who gets killed off first.
first.
Okay.
I was going to mention this before, but because you were talking about following her and the kill and not as interesting, would you be surprised to learn that that was part of a reshoot? Because originally that scene, the first half of it, is exactly the same. And then when the girl goes upstairs and she gets the phone call, from that point, originally she died first, and we follow Britt Robertson.
Oh.
after this movie, I quite like. I thought she was great. I wasn't a huge fan of Tomorrowland, but I thought she was really good in it, and she's delivered a lot of good
Oh, is
performances.
that her? Okay.
It's a girl from
Okay.
Tomorrowland. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, I like her. I'm genuinely like her stuff a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, originally she calls the girl. I don't remember all of it because I haven't watched the deleted scenes in a long time.
Yeah, I haven't
But
watched mine either.
but originally she gets the phone call upstairs. She comes downstairs, and I think Ghostface shows up, and then like Britt Robertson takes over the match. She's like, ha ha ha, and she's like, fuck you for joking. That's not cool. And then Ghostface shows up for real, and Britt
Right.
Robertson has to like get chased. And I think on the commentary, Wes Craven mentioned that like I think it was like a Bob Weinstein thing. Like it should be that girl.
Oh no.
So let's go back and reshoot it. Like we can cut this. Yeah, but that was like a note to make it her
Oh,
instead.
shit. Okay.
Um,
Well, that interests me. It doesn't surprise me. I'd be interested. Yeah, I'll watch the deleted scene now. I'm gonna watch all my special features on these because some of them, I think I saw the commentaries for the original trilogy a long time ago when I still had the DVD box,
yeah,
which you still have.
I've listened to Scream 1 and 2, and I do still have it. I've listened to part of Scream 3, and I've
Yeah.
listened to part of Scream 4.
Hmm.
Um,
But I haven't
but
listened to them in ages. The ones that I have, and I haven't listened to Scream. I listened to Scream 4 a little bit after I watched it when I was still completing my notes and stuff this time. But I wasn't really listening. I was just kind of like, how does Wes Craven feel about this? And he just seems so bright, and
yeah,
just he's sitting with, I think, a producer and then someone else who's like behind the scenes. None of the actors turned up. I think it was him and two producers, and one producer couldn't make it or something.
what for Scream 4?
For Scream 4,
No, Scream
I
4.
think.
The Scream 4. The commentary is Emma Roberts and Kirby.
What am I thinking of then?
I don't know because Scream
It's getting late. I'm
because
just, yeah.
Scream 2 is him and Kevin Williams. No, Scream 1 is him and Kevin Williamson. I think Scream 2 is him and Kevin Williamson.
Okay.
So
That sounds right.
maybe it's 3.
Is there only one commentary track on 4?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe there's a second one.
Maybe there's a second one with just him and like the production team.
Yeah, no, because I remember because it's him and Emma Roberts and Hayden Panettiere, and then Nev Campbell calls in for like part of it. And
Oh. Okay, and I just gotta say, Nev, like, I saw like The Craft got released the same year. And she was such a follower in that I never watched Party of Five, and I hadn't seen her in many of her famous movies. I still haven't seen Wild Things. I saw her in Reefer Madness, but she was barely in it. Don't look at you in your face.
No, Wild Things is it's a better movie than like the marketing and the sexiness of it, the way it was sold. It's Wild Things is you should watch Wild Things. Wild Things is good.
Okay. I remember my dad liked it, which I thought was weird, and then
I don't want to tell you
he's a movie buff, but
it is it's if you take the not just but that sexy. Have you ever seen like Body Heat?
yeah,
Yeah, but if you take that like that sexy noir movie, and there's a twist and there's a twist, and the double crosses and all that, that movie kind of like does what Scream like
okay,
oh my god, it plays with the formula. And they did not sell that movie as something that is witty and plays with formula. They just sold you on Denise Richards and Nev Campbell in a pool.
right.
But
That's all I know about it. And Matt Dillon watching.
Wild Things is funny.
Okay, I'll look for it. I'll try to rent it before the shelter in place is lifted. But no, but so anyway, but I mean, so my reference for her was like The Craft, which she's I think she's really, really good in it. I think she plays a really, really good beta, but she was such a beta that it shocks me now watching her. Again, you talk about like one character not having anything to do with another, with like, with Courtney Cox and with Monica and everything. Then have Campbell watching her in The Craft, and then watching her Sydney, and then watching her Sydney progress. Because one thing I love is how Nev knows exactly where Sydney is at the top of each one of these movies. And every one of them is plausible. Every one of them is interesting. Every one of them has me there rooting for her. But it only intensifies as the movies go on. And to the point where, like, by the time we get to 4, everything she does, I'm like, that's my girl. And it's not like I don't do that before, but I mean, you know, she gets learning curve, you know, in the first movie especially, and second movie she's still trying to be normal, but by the time she's in the third and fourth, I'm just kind of like, this is what I came for. And people are speculating about her getting killed off in Five Cream. Finally, some people are saying, and I'm just like, I don't want to live in a world where Sydney gets killed off in a movie called Five Cream.
Well, I remember being the first time I saw Scream 2, I did not know if like Dewey or Gale were gonna like I still by the time you get to the third one, going into 4, I'm like, I remember even when they killed Sydney, I was like, she got stabbed once and we're gonna stab her again. I'm like, I feel like if there's only one. It almost feels like a safe thing, but like it's like we're never gonna kill the core 3. We're never gonna kill the core 3 to the point where like, if you want to take a risk, kill one of the core 3 because after 4 movies,
I would say
you want to show me all bets are off.
Yeah.
Especially in Scream 3, where they're like, you know, what I know, but the only thing I know about the trilogy is, you know, third one, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Not for the core 3.
Yeah. Well,
they're gonna be fine.
Yeah. I wouldn't, for the other 2, there's a way that you could get either of them or even both of them, and not that I'd be on board, and you'd have to do it properly. I don't want to Adrian King beginning of Friday Part 2, but I can actually imagine a movie where I have to watch Gale get killed off, or a movie where I have to watch like Dewey get killed off, and not that I'd like it, but where it could feel like what's right for the progression of the movies. I can't do that with Sydney. The more I think, I just need to keep thinking about it.
To me, it would depend not just on the story and the theme of the story, but also it would really depend on who's the killer.
Yeah.
It can't just be like
some schmo
Halloween Resurrection and like
no.
Yeah.
I don't even want it to be the opening scene. Don't like let it be the opener. Like do it in a satisfying way. Like we already have. I mean, I get it. We already have like a potential like next generation final girl with Kirby, and you've heard me sing her praises. You know that I'd be in favor of that in its way. I mean, I really just mean I want her to be a part of the core group, but like she belongs in the movie, whoever she plays. But I'm it's going to be a sad day should the day ever come where I go see a Scream movie and I have to watch Sydney. It's a sad day if I have to watch any of them, but Sydney.
Dude, Randy dying messed me up, and that was only 2 movies, and that's just not like growth, but I mean, you could tell how his character's evolved. But I mean, I've watched her grow.
Yeah.
So much that I don't. It's going to take a lot out of me if that happens, but
yeah. It's going to take a lot out of me if they take any of these core people, but something about Sydney, makes me mad. It makes me mad thinking, because you know what? That's what makes me mad is that if they do a Scream 5 and it's successful, and then they come up with a Scream 6, there's going to start to be Scream movies without Sydney in them. And
it's going to happen eventually.
I know, and it's like if this is like where you want to like chime in at all about the series, which I haven't seen, that's what kept me away from it. Is I was just like, well, it's not connected to the movies.
Yeah, I don't know how you'll feel about it. I don't know, because first of all, before I go off on the series for a second, I just want to mention that I think some credit, just minor credit, needs to be given to Marley Shelton. I think it'd be fun if there was a Scream 5. I would hope she's still on the force. Because I liked her energy a lot. I liked the bringing the lemon squares and her her crush on Dewey that Gale is very much aware of.
Yeah, even her little weirdness about being a lost boy and all of that.
Yeah, well, that was a good red herring scene. Like, remember that was a freshman when you were a senior, and like,
she was a little creepy. It was like, you haven't blinked in a minute.
She originally, Lake Bell was cast in that part, and I love Lake Bell. I think she's very talented, and I could totally see her like owning being a cop and all that. And I remember when they first announced that Marley Shelton was replacing her, I was like, oh. I mean, I like Marley Shelton a lot. Between Sugar and Spice and Pleasantville, just so fucking much. But I
Mm,
really like the idea of Lake Bell, especially like when Lake Bell gets to play something straight. Considering
mm.
her comedy background, she plays straight really, really well. Um, but something about Marley Shelton's giant eyeballs really works for the character she's playing, especially when she's taking it so seriously that like you can't go into the office right now because you're a civilian and Dewey's in there and he's the sheriff. Like she's so good, and those giant eyeballs really work in that hallway scene. Like, hey, remember when I was a freshman? Like,
Yeah. And she's
I,
Dewey's deputy. She is
I'm
so Dewey's deputy.
I'm so glad. There's been random little like I think it. No, no, this wasn't. I got it backwards. But going back to like I remember in Scary Movie, I think Jenny McCarthy was supposed to be in it, and then she opted out to be in Scream 3. I'm like, that's funny that you're in the thing that the other thing's a spoof of, and
Yeah, I texted my sister I like her better in Scary Movie 3.
Scary Movie 3. And I thought it was funny that she then ended up coming back to Scary
Yeah.
Movie 3.
Yeah.
Honestly, I mean, say what you want about Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCarthy as whatever their careers have been, but they're really funny in that opening scene.
Oh my God.
And that
It's one of
pillow
my
fight.
favorite
Oh, you
things in the
know, that
world.
look in Jenny McCarthy's face right before she swings the
Yeah.
pillow cracks me
And then
up.
when she gets Melvin, it's like, ah!
Well, Jenny McCarthy was always funny on Singled
Yeah.
Out. And guilty pleasure, it's I really like Dirty Love, which is a Razzie winner.
I haven't even seen that.
Dude,
Uh,
no, it was directed by her then either husband or boyfriend, I think. And I
okay.
think she co-wrote it, but no, you want like a giant, massive misfire, Razzie winning like. But the thing about this is, hey, did you come to watch us talk about Scream? I mean, I'm talking about Jenny McCarthy and Dirty Love, but she has a thing that most comedians need to do, which is be fearless. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of weird, gross shit in Dirty Love, and she commits 100% to it. And I've always would like to have seen her succeed more in comedy. And I know a few people who like Dirty Love the same way I do, because it's incredible bad. But I know one person who's like, oh, I just love that movie. It's so funny. And I'm like, well, did you know it won like worst picture and worst actress? And she's, no, Dirty Love's really funny. I'm like, all right, cool. Anyway, yeah, I don't actually think Scream 3 is the best use for her. And yeah, her kill sucked. I think you mentioned, I didn't, but so many, Scream 3 has the most flaccid, uninteresting kills.
Yeah.
And so unbloody. I remember like she goes through the window and she gets like a little knife in the back. But if you look at how much blood is all over the house in Scream 1, that showdown and Stu and Scream 2, and just then you get to 3, and I don't know. I'm not like rooting people to die, but we come to a horror movie to watch some good kills, and Scream 3 does not deliver good kills. Scream 4 it has some, again, Anthony Anderson, some really disturbing ones. But yeah, the TV show. The thing that's interesting about TV show doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but they keep the idea of like they don't even have the rights to the Ghostface mask.
Yeah.
And it has like a purpose. Like there's a whole, there's elements that almost feel like Friday the 13th. There was like, or like there was in the past, just like how there was a history only by a year, but there was a history of Sydney's mom. The town has like the history of this killer, this like serial killer.
Okay.
And like he had like a malformed face, and this mask was what he wore to like keep things together. So like it had a purpose. But I went in going, I'm not gonna like this because you shouldn't make a show. I don't like when you take a thing and remake a thing. But the cast is really game.
Okay.
And there's a lead character who is sort of your Sydney type, and then there's definitely a Randy type.
Okay.
And then Bex Taylor Klaus, I think that's her last name, is in it. I think you might know her from Hellfest, and like the first season or two of Arrow.
Oh, okay.
because she was Roy Harper's buddy. She's always got like
Roy
short black
Harper.
hair, but in Hellfest.
I don't. Okay. I
But
haven't seen
she's
Hellfest in a long time. I need to rewatch that.
so,
Actually, I like
but
that
Bex
movie.
Taylor Klaus is awesome, and this
Okay.
was a great show to watch her every week. The cast is
Okay.
really solid, but what's fun is that they decided to, one, not go with Ghostface, and two, to not necessarily have it be all about movie references. But
Mm.
every once in a while, the Randy would say some Randy shit. But I'll just genuinely say that, like, it could almost just not have been called Scream.
Okay.
But there's enough that I get why it's still, because first of all, the season opens with like at least to the current MTV generation, like a celebrity getting in the opening scene.
Hmm.
Um, but you still have a person in black with the white mask, so I get it.
Right.
But yeah, I can't. It's been a few years, but I'll just tell you that I was surprised that I was so genuinely hooked into the cast, the plot, where the story went, and just how solid a lot of these actors were. I was really into it. So much so that when they did like a season 2 and they had to like keep it going, I was on board. And they did this
Nice.
ridiculous thing where like season 2 ended and then they had like a 1 hour special, like a Halloween special or something,
Uh-huh.
and or a Christmas special. All I know is like a 2 hour movie that for no reason whatsoever, like they all go on vacation to the same island and there's a killer on the island and they just solve another thing. But it was like just 2 hours. And I'm like, this is going to be dumb. Why is this cast making me enjoy this so much? Um,
Okay.
and then they did what was supposed to be like a season 3 with that cast, and then it got canceled. And then they just rebooted the show.
Mm.
And then they filmed it and then sat on it for a while and then dumped it to VH1. So instead of being an MTV show, because they're owned by the same company apparently, they put
Right.
it on VH1. And that was also interesting. Neither of them capture the magic of what Kevin Williamson metatextually wanted to do with Scream. They're more just straightforward slasher shows. But the
Okay.
cool thing about season 3 of Scream is that they got the rights to Ghostface.
Oh.
So he's in the mask.
Okay.
And I have to see who's behind the scenes, but it's an incredibly black show, which was really
Mm.
refreshing to have like the community, the neighborhood, like they had a few like token whites in the cast, but like it definitely has a new vibe by being urban without ever feeling like I'm watching a bunch of white executives make a condescendingly urban product. You know what I mean?
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, and it's short. I think it was only like 6 episodes or something,
Mm.
or 8. I think it was 6 episodes, and they aired them like over 3 nights. They dumped it out and just. But aside from having the ghost face mask, it doesn't really have much to do with Scream aside from teens getting killed.
Okay.
But again, they cast some pretty good people that
Okay.
got me engaged enough to care about the show. It's interesting
Okay.
that after Scream 4, like that was the legacy, was like a couple TV shows.
Right.
But there are enough people that watched the first 2 seasons. No, apparently nobody watched season 3, but I did. Oh, it was fun.
Yeah, my sister liked it.
Yeah, she's
I
the
yeah.
only person I could talk to about it.
Yeah. But no, it's on. I think it was on Netflix. Is it still on Netflix now?
I remember
As
seeing
of this
that
taping?
Ghostface. Yeah, I don't know,
Okay.
but I was
Okay.
just surprised. I
I'll
was just
hunt around.
surprised how engaged I was with the show. I had a good time.
Okay, I'll hunt around for it. You want to rank?
Oh,
Are we
sure.
ranking?
Yeah. Oh,
While we're here,
actually, before we rank, I'd like to say one little thing that I forgot to mention.
go for it.
Going back to Scream 2, just really quickly. The camera. I
Yes.
really like the cameraman. I, I
Oh.
like I like that he's just a local affiliate and he's just here to point the camera. But what I love is when he's reading the book
Hmm.
and then he's like, "Have you fucking your last cameraman died?" Like
Yeah.
I'm not fucking here for this. And then she's like, "Get your act together." But I love after Randy dies. I am so with him when he's like, "Here's your camera, here's your tapes. I'm
Hmm.
fucking out of here." And the fact that you're trying to stick around, like you're fucking crazy. Like he says, you have to have your head examined.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand from the movie standpoint for her and her arc that we like, but I also like as just like a normal person, like if that was my job and I was like, yeah, you can get another cameraman. I'm not sticking around here. Also, like brothers don't last long in situations, but like
Yeah.
like I 100% understand why he's leaving.
That's so cool. Well, while we're discussing Gail's cameraman, I noticed something about Kenny in the first one that I never noticed before that kind of broke my heart. During his kill, when he turns around, I always remember that he turned around and revealed like his slashed throat to Sydney while she's inside the van.
I know what you're gonna say.
I never noticed that he like gestures toward the little crawl space, the exit that she takes when she's trying to get out, and the one that Ghostface gets stuck in trying to chase her. I never noticed that before. So the fact that like he's still, as he's dying, trying to like guide her. You can tell he's playing that he's losing his faculties too. But while he still has like some kind of, signals from his brain sending into his body, I watched that and I was just kind of like, I never saw that before. I always remember like how I'm right there with Gail when she discovers the thing, and I'm like, no, don't. And then it's blood, and then you see that Kenny's on top, and you scream, and it's like, I'm sorry, Kenny, but get up, I got damn with you. Always, all of it, yes. I'm sorry, but get up, I got damn with you. But yeah, no, that kind of broke my heart. I was just like, oh my god, that because the softness in Sydney that appeals. That also appeals, like she's that wonderful human quality she has to really be there with whoever she's with, even in that moment while she's freaking out and he's bleeding from the neck pointing. She's like looking at him like, oh my god, like why do people have to die around me? It was awesome.
I think speaking of cameramen and the cameraman in Scream 2, it just reminded me of like I spoke not disparagingly, but when we were talking about Paranormal 3 when Randy leaves.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that when you were talking about this cameraman.
And I think, and I mentioned that like Randy, I think more believably and less performy or whatever, like left without like the see ya, wouldn't want to be it. Like he's just like, I gotta fucking go, I'm out of here, bye. There's something that it's not a bad thing, but I will just point out because I wrote for my friend's blog. He has thiscinematiclife.com. He and his wife run like a movie blog, and I write for them occasionally. It's been a while. But when I was praising Cabin in the Woods, one of my praising things was like how this is much like Scream, like a love letter to horror movies by deconstructing the rules of horror movies. But what's so great about Cabin in the Woods is it doesn't stop and go, here's the rules of horror movies. I'm going to lay it all out for you. Cabin in the Woods presumes you know everything about the format and the formulas and just does the jokes. And I'm like, it doesn't lay things out for you. However, it almost sounds like an insult when I'm talking about Cabin in the Woods about Scream. But the thing about Scream is that what they were doing was fresh in 96. I feel like if you wrote Scream for the first time in like 2020, it would play differently. But you're only coming off of like the slasher genre was thriving in the 80s. So we're only talking about, less than 10 years since then. So, but what that did for me is that, you could tell when people who've never seen horror movies can still laugh when she goes, when some woman runs up the stairs and running out the front door, it's insulting.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, the joke pays off, and that informs the normies who don't know anything about horror. But there's nothing wrong with laying that out because in 1996, that was a fresh way to tell it. But yeah, when I saw Cabin in the Woods, there's no doubt where I'm like, oh, we're going Scream, but like more so. Like we're gonna really deconstruct the fuck out of it. But
I love the speculating of just like you could feel the audience in that one sequence where it just pulls back and reveals all these rooms, and people are going like, wouldn't want to be in that room. That's my room.
Ballerina with teeth. Yeah.
But it's interesting that you bring that up because it makes me think about like it's not a complaint because it's a character saying something, but I feel like it's kind of like blaming Kevin Smith for making Chasing Amy and calling it a lesbian movie when I don't believe Miss Alyssa Jones is a lesbian. So and she doesn't. Yes, when we meet her, she identifies as a lesbian. Then we find out a bunch of other stuff, and we have to adapt as an audience. Anyway, sorry, whole other tangent. 90s
But
movie,
you're right.
not
Chasing
related.
Amy isn't a lesbian movie. It's a guy's fucking fragile ego and the things he has to learn movie.
Right, with a girl who's like figuring things out.
Yeah.
But but with this movie, the Chasing Amy moment for me, that I feel like it's like the things that stand out to people that they carried with, because you're also talking about like normies who watch this movie, because I think real horror fans know better, but a lot of normies saw this movie and created this legend around Randy talking about the virgin surviving in these movies. So all of a sudden, all those other movies retroactively were all those girls were like reassigned their virginity, when there are plenty of female heroines in the slasher films that preceded Scream who are either, it's never expressly communicated, it's not even alluded to whether they have or not, or they full on hook up and have sex and get to survive at the end of the movie. That was something that actually kind of got in my craw pretty soon after like when you've seen a movie a few times and you really just start kind of like, things start rolling over in your head and you're just kind of like, they weren't all virgins. I'm watching one right now. She's
right.
Well, if you think she's a virgin after this.
Well, if you're painting in very broad strokes, if you're,
course.
if you're just stereotyping a whole genre versus really getting into the nitty gritty of all these movies you can cite. Yeah, sure.
And that's when broad strokes started to really, I was just moving into my late teens when these movies were, really, really taking off. And I was really learning how to discern and become frustrated with broad strokes. Now it's just kind of like, well, I understand sometimes you need to talk in broad strokes just to kind of like make a point. Because you can't talk about each individual experience and each individual person, be they fictitious or real, and make a point all the time. So, I mean, yeah, it's a little bit more balanced. But it was something that used to irk me that I still feel people just kind of accepting blindly rather than going back to, go back to the source material.
I saw Scream, so now I can say that about horror movies. And
just like I saw Chasing Amy, so now I know everything I need to know about lesbians.
I'll mention this quickly, but each one of these sequels is also, even the third one to a certain degree, was still refreshing, only because talk about a trendsetter. But after Scream, every studio took note and said, get a hot white cast, put a killer, and make sure they're masked. And I think, also Kevin Williamson wrote I Know What You Did Last Summer. But, you had Urban Legend and just Valentine, just so much for the following several years. And I hated most of that wave of horror films. It's like one of my least favorite periods is the post-Scream slasher era.
The teen horror, yeah.
Correct. Primarily because they all were missing the thing that Scream had, which was Kevin Williamson's wit. Or even the sharpness of Wes's direction. Some of these were just very, slapped together.
They were written by people we don't remember or directed by people we don't remember. Sometimes, not all of them, but a lot of them. Yeah.
But then within a couple of years, like, here's another Scream. I'm like, oh, thank God. But also, I don't want everyone to rip off Kevin Williamson's specific tone either. I mean, some of them would mention there'd be some postmodern dialogue, but there isn't the intent, there isn't the satirization. And it's hard when something is a satire for then you to miss the point and just sort of do the rest of it. We're going to have the cast and the kills. Okay, fine. So anyway, I mean, that's why at least at the time I appreciated some of the sequels, is at least got to see some characters that I cared about again. Because you know, there. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but there are things like that amuse me about like urban legend, but there's nothing.
Hmm.
There's no character I care about the way I care about like
Yeah.
Dewey or Sydney.
I don't. We've speculated with some of these franchises thus far, like how far we thought we were going to be really able to just kind of like do some broad brushstrokes and just kind of like cover this in a small amount of time. I don't even know how much time has passed now, and look, we're still
Yeah.
talking about it and talking about things related to it. If we were going to talk about urban legends, I don't know how much time we'd spend.
No. Yeah. So let's rank this and get out of here because I think this
Yeah,
is
let's do it.
I think Scream 2 and 3 and 4 is going to be a really long one.
Yeah.
As far as how long this I honestly if this will be fun, I'm guessing it's like 3 hours.
Oh, Jesus.
I'm
Okay.
guessing. Um, but to me, these are really easy to rank.
Yeah.
Do you want to go number, or just want to list your four
Yeah.
and I'll list my four? You list your four. Go.
Okay. Number 4, Scream 3. Number 3, Scream 2. Number 2, Scriphorum. And number 1, Scream. And my Scream 2 and Scriphorum used to be swapped. And this last time, just because Scriphorum leaves me going, oh, and Scream 2 leaves me going, so what's next?
Interesting. It's interesting that your list used to be my list because I have Scream 3 at the bottom,
Yeah.
then Scream 4, and
Yeah.
then Scream 2 and Scream 1.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Only because there's these little bits in 4, like Alison Brie, like her kill, like I don't connect to as much. It is a little, grimy in parts.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Scream 2, I think really succeeds at being a Scream 2. And it still manages to be not just a sequel, but I still really care about a lot of these characters, even some of the new guys. Just yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that's no discredit to 4. In fact, even though 4 didn't move up to above 2, and
Mm-hmm.
even though I've already seen Scream 4 like 5 or 6 times, it still went up in my estimation this time.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And I don't
absolutely.
really know why. I just got more out of it on like 7th viewing. But yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also it was really like going down to, okay, do I want to vote for the one that I really, really love the beginning and the end, or the one that I really, really love like the middle, and I kind of like the ending. There are things to like with it, and ultimately I was just kind of like, well, which one am I looking forward to watching again more? And that was the answer. It was just like, well, Scriphorum. I don't know. I'd rather give that one another go. Scream 2. I mean, it's also probably because I've seen Scream 2 so many times, but there's still rewards in it. I mean, there are rewards in all of these. I went on about them. So this isn't about
yeah.
hating people.
I've seen Scream 2 so many times and Scream 1 so many times. But yeah, there's something about 4 where maybe it's just because it's newer and a little fresher.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do like that showdown in the hospital.
Oh,
I can even
God.
I can
I'm
even
dying.
suspend my disbelief when she turns on the machine to give her the
Mm.
charge because I'm like, that shit would make some noise.
She would hear that. Yeah.
She would hear that. However,
It may be like Gail could have just started shouting or just turned on the TV or something like, oops,
yeah.
but I'm so, that's the thing is like when you're on the ride, when you're
Hmm.
with them, little things,
Yeah.
because I
It
have
was
little
interesting.
things for 2 too.
And it was interesting that I know, and first of all, this happened, there's a period in the early 2010s where this was in the late 2000s, everything was going to be the start of a sequel. I mean, of a
Mm-hmm.
trilogy. Everything. When they went into production on Terminator Salvation, it was going to be the first of a new trilogy. Everything was the first of a new trilogy. And I remember when this was even like, well, we're planning on doing a 5 and a 6. So I found it so
Mm-hmm.
interesting where I'm like, I went in thinking Jill was going to be one of our new leads. And then the movie ends with like her dead fucking face. I'm like, holy shit, where are you going with 5? Obviously, your core 3 are coming back, but yeah.
Yeah. No, the screenwriter I dated wanted to bring it back to the first one, I remember. Not in a Scream 3 way, but also even in a way that kind of like Thor Dark World did it, the way, Avengers Endgame gave us Thor Dark World in a way we can like watch it and be kind of like, oh, this feels better. I don't remember the premise. I just remember kind of going, oh, that would have been interesting. And then it didn't happen. So who knows what it's going to be now.
Well, I am curious about 5, just because I really, especially rewatching these, the idea of Wes Craven not directing them makes me go, However, rewatching these and ignoring the legacy of his name and just taking in what I'm seeing and experiencing and thinking about Ready or Not, because the people who did Ready or Not are doing this. I forget what they're called. They have like a funny name.
Oh, okay.
They have like a, I don't even know, but Hammer and Tongs are not named Hammer and Tongs, but that's what they go by.
Sure.
And they have a funny, the Spook House or something. But anyway, these guys, I really liked Ready or Not a lot. And
Me
I
too.
especially
Me
think
too.
about how that movie was filmed and their mix of genuine suspense, but also their sense of wit. And the fact that one of those two guys is writing Scream 5, and the other one I think was either a writer or a producer on Zodiac. So if you're telling me you have a good sense of heaviness and humor, and Ready or Not showed me your command of telling a story, on paper, I already feel like we're in good hands. They haven't announced it, and I'm flipping a table. Fuck this! I don't like these people. Blah blah blah. I go, oh, okay, cool.
Okay.
Let's see what you got.
I have faith.
I'm ready to take the journey.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm definitely ready. I mean, my ticket is bought. Like, I mean, whenever they end up shooting it, and whenever we end up going to see it.
Kevin Williamson is executive producing it, and from what I've read from him, not just like a name credit executive producing, but I know I don't think he wrote the story, but like he's giving them story notes. Like he's helped the two screenwriters to a certain degree.
Okay, I like
so
that.
At least, because for me, he is the magic sauce of this franchise, and Scream 3 suffers considerably in his absence. And if he's just sprinkling, if he's just a little seasoning on top of this 5th one, great.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, like, also, even, I mean, we could talk about this forever. We need to wrap this up, but I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. I'm not going to get too hyped. I don't want to know too much going in. Like, knowing the cast is fine, but like when people start like releasing videos about like the plot details and everything, I'd rather go in blind.
Yeah, so, I agree. So,
but good little franchise. Thank you, Wes Carpenter.
Yeah. I'm gonna go fuck off now. But until next time, we'll talk about something else for 8 hours.
Right. Well, we had a good idea leading with the one movie. Maybe next time we'll just break it up, just one movie, and then have our ranking with the final movie at the end. Just do separate videos. See if it makes any difference.
Yeah, we'll see. Because even if we pick, any other film franchise and we stick to this, like let's say we watch Final Destination, that's like 5 Final Destination movies. Although I think I'd have that much to say, but I think I said that about Scream, and look at where we are now.
We said that about Paranormal Activity too.
I know. Well, my buddy and I did all the Connery movies for like 2.5 hours, and that was 7 movies, right? So I presumed when we talked about the one Lazenby movie, an hour and 50 minutes. But that's because we fucking love that movie and had a lot to say. So.
Yeah, I have quite a bit to say about Final Destination if we do it. So I mean, I don't, but I do. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, we'll ponder that, and I'm gonna say bye.
Bye.
Fuck off.